King Harris, the son of rapper T.I. and singer Tiny, was clinging to life in an Atlanta hospital, and the scene was pure chaos. What began as a small health scare had spiraled into something terrifying and unthinkable. The bright lights of the ER flickered against the sterile walls as Tiny stood there shaking, her hands pressed to her face, her heart breaking into a million pieces. Her baby boy, her pride, her reason to breathe, was fighting for every single second. But grief wasn't the only thing burning inside her chest. Anger was right there too, raw, explosive, and aimed straight at the one person she thought she could always rely on. "This is all your fault, T.I.," she screamed, her voice echoing down the hospital corridor. "If it wasn't for you, none of this would be happening. You dragged us into this world, and now King is paying the price." Her words sliced through the air like knives, filled with years of love, fear, and resentment all at once. T.I. froze, completely speechless. The man known for his control, his power, his confidence, now stood shattered. Every word hit him like a bullet. He wanted to shout back, to defend himself, to tell her that he'd give up everything, the fame, the money, the whole empire, just to see his son open his eyes again. But he couldn't. The pain in her eyes told him the truth. This wasn't about blame anymore. It was about heartbreak. In that moment, Tiny wasn't just a mother, she was a storm raging from a love so deep it hurt to exist. And T.I., the man who'd faced down the world, realized there was nothing he could say to fix it, nothing that could make her believe he hadn't failed them all. Tiny collapsed to the cold hospital floor, her cries echoing through the sterile hallways like a broken melody. She couldn't stop shaking, her heart felt ripped straight out of her chest. Seeing that, I couldn't take it anymore. He had to step outside before he completely lost control. His head was spinning, his son was clinging to life, his marriage was hanging by a thread, and the entire world was watching. Under the harsh glare of flashing cameras, T.I. tried to hold himself together. His eyes were red, his voice trembling as he faced the reporters waiting outside the hospital. Please pray for King," he said, his words cracking mid-sentence. "He's fighting for his life, and we need every prayer we can get." The crowd went silent, his pain raw and unfiltered. But behind those words, something deeper was gnawing at him. Something that didn't make sense. King wasn't just sick. This felt different, darker. Inside that hospital, things were unraveling fast. King's body was shutting down and the doctors had no clue why. His vitals were crashing. His blood work made no sense. And every test led to more confusion. "We've never seen anything like this," one nurse whispered under her breath. His organs were starting to fail. Yet no one could explain what was causing it. Then came the whispers, quiet at first, then spreading through the hallways and online forums like wildfire. People started asking the unthinkable. Was this really just a tragic accident, or had someone interfered? Was there foul play behind King's sudden collapse? The Harris family didn't have answers, only fear, confusion, and a growing sense that something sinister was unfolding right under their noses. Then out of nowhere, boom, an anonymous leak hit the internet and sent shockwaves across the world. A secret audio recording, supposedly taken inside the very hospital where King was fighting for his life, surfaced online. And what it revealed was downright terrifying. A cold, emotionless voice could be heard saying, "The order came from above. We just cleared the way." The clip was barely a few seconds long, but it was enough to make millions of people stop and ask, what did that mean? Who gave that order? And what exactly did "clear the way" even imply? Was someone intentionally trying to harm King? Social media went wild. Hashtags, theories, conspiracies, all exploding within minutes. The Harris family was suddenly at the center of a storm that felt completely out of control. Tiny, already shattered by fear and anger, now felt something even worse, conviction. She looked straight at T.I., her eyes filled with fury and heartbreak. "T.I., this is your fault," she cried again, her voice shaking with rage. "You brought this life into our family, this fame, this chaos, and now this is the price we're paying." T.I. could barely breathe. Every accusation hit him like a hammer to the chest. He wanted to defend himself, to tell her he'd never stop fighting for King, that he'd tear down the world to save his boy. But the pain in her eyes silenced him. The guilt was eating him alive. And deep down, a terrifying question was forming in his own mind. What if she was right? Meanwhile, inside the hospital, the tension was unbearable. King's condition kept getting worse, his heart rate unstable, his organs failing one by one. and no one could explain why. The doctors were exhausted working around the clock, but whispers started spreading among the staff. Some nurses quietly admitted they didn't trust everyone in that building anymore. Were they truly fighting to save King? Or was someone on the inside making sure he never recovered? King's test results, the strange patterns in his charts, that eerie audio leak, it all started connecting in ways that were too suspicious to ignore. This wasn't just a medical emergency anymore. It was beginning to look like someone wanted to make sure King never had the chance to speak again. The thought alone made T.I.'s blood boil. He wasn't just scared now, he was furious. Days passed, and his frustration turned into obsession. Every time he looked at his son hooked up to machines, barely holding on, he swore to himself he'd uncover the truth, no matter who was behind it. He couldn't just sit there powerless while something this dark unfolded under the same roof where his son was supposed to be safe. Then, another bombshell dropped. Security footage from the ICU leaked online, and what it showed sent chills through everyone watching. In the dead of night, two masked figures were caught entering King's hospital room. One of them carried a small metallic case that gleamed under the fluorescent lights. The footage was grainy and shaky, but there was no denying it. Someone had been inside King's room when no one else was supposed to be there. The internet exploded again. Who were they? People demanded. What was in that case? Some said it looked like medical equipment. Others swore it was something far more sinister. Were these people trying to finish what they started? Was this an orchestrated move to silence King for good? Inside the hospital, panic spread like wildfire. T.I. was on edge, pacing the halls, rage and fear battling inside him. Tiny sat nearby, her face pale, tears falling silently as she tried to hold herself together. The tension between them was unbearable. Love, grief, anger, and fear all crashing at once. She still couldn't shake her belief that T.I.'s fame had brought this curse upon their family, while he refused to accept defeat. Outside, millions watched the story unfold in real time, glued to every update, every rumor, every blurry screenshot. Everyone had questions. Who were those masked figures? Why was the footage hidden until now? The truth was slipping further and further away, and it was becoming painfully clear. Nothing about this tragedy was simple anymore. The hours crawled by like a nightmare that refused to end. Every beep from the hospital monitors made Tiny's heart jump. Every silence made her stomach drop. Hope for King's recovery was slipping away minute by minute, and Tiny was running on pure emotion. Her eyes were swollen, her steps unsteady as she paced the sterile halls, whispering silent prayers that seemed to go unanswered. She had survived heartbreak before, betrayal, loss, but nothing in her life had prepared her for this kind of pain. Her baby, her pride, her joy was barely holding on. She couldn't understand how everything had changed so fast. Just days ago, King was full of energy, cracking jokes, living his life, and now he was fighting for every single breath. The grief was eating her alive, and underneath it all, that familiar flame of anger burned hotter than ever. Every glance at T.I. reignited it. In her mind, none of this would have happened if he hadn't pulled their family into the spotlight. I stood beside her, trying his best to keep it together, but his heart was shattering piece by piece. He reached out, trying to hold her hand, his voice low and trembling. "I'm doing everything I can," he said softly, pleading for her to look at him. "I'm here, Tiny. I'm fighting with you. But we gotta stay strong. For King." His eyes begged for connection, for forgiveness, for anything that reminded him they were still a team. But Tiny wasn't having it. She turned toward him, her face pale and full of heartbreak, her voice cold and sharp. "Stay strong for King?" she repeated bitterly. "It's too late for that, T.I. We've lost him already. You've lost him." The words sliced through him deeper than any knife could. He froze, her voice echoing in his mind, each word hitting like a blow straight to the chest. For a moment, T.I. couldn't breathe. The man who had built an empire, who had stood strong through every scandal and every headline, was now standing there broken, helpless, and afraid. Tiny's pain had become a wall he couldn't climb, and it hit him hard that he might be losing more than his son. He might be losing the woman he loved too. The distance between them felt endless, and the weight of it all was crushing them both. Inside the ICU, the atmosphere was pure panic. King's condition was unraveling faster than anyone had imagined. Every monitor beep felt like a countdown. Every doctor's whisper carried a tone of disbelief. The medical team was running out of explanations. Test after test came back worse than the last, but nothing made sense. King's body was rejecting treatments that should have been saving his life. It was like something deep inside him was fighting back against help itself. Was it just a rare complication, or was something else happening behind those hospital doors? The tension was unbearable. Even the most experienced doctors started exchanging nervous looks, while nurses whispered quietly in the corners. "This doesn't add up," one of them muttered. Are we treating an illness or covering up something bigger? The fear in that ICU was no longer about losing a patient. It was about uncovering a secret no one wanted to believe. Then came another explosion, a new leak. A source close to the Harris family, someone with deep access to the hospital system, stepped forward anonymously and fed information to the press. And that's when the entire story took a terrifying turn. What started as a tragedy, a young man fighting for his life, had now become a full-blown conspiracy. The headlines went wild. Cover up in Atlanta hospital? Was King Harris targeted? The world was demanding answers. The leaked medical files made everything worse. According to the documents, King's injuries didn't match the story the public had been told. There were markings, wounds, evidence that didn't align with a simple medical crisis or fight gone wrong. Doctors privately admitted they couldn't explain the bruising patterns or internal damage they'd seen. It was as if someone had gone out of their way to make it look like an accident, but failed to hide the truth completely. The whispers grew louder. Was someone trying to silence King before he could speak out? The idea sounded insane, yet the evidence was stacking up. In that moment, the whole world started looking at the Harris family differently. This wasn't just a hospital emergency anymore. It was beginning to look like a dangerous game of power, secrets and silence. And King was right at the center of it. Then came the bombshell that flipped everything upside down, a spine-chilling audio clip that shook the internet to its core. It was only a few seconds long, but the impact was massive. In the recording, a voice, low, nervous, almost whispering, could be heard saying, "The order came from above, we just cleared the way." The moment those words hit the internet, chaos erupted. Who was above? What did clearing the way mean? The question spread like wildfire, and within hours, social media was in total meltdown. People didn't know what to believe. Was this just a cruel prank, or evidence that someone high up was pulling the strings to make sure King never walked out of that room alive? The idea of a cover-up was horrifying. Theories exploded across every platform, each one more shocking than the last. Some claimed it was hospital corruption. Others whispered it was tied to something even bigger, a power move meant to silence the Harris family forever. Fans flooded comment sections demanding the truth. "We need answers," one post screamed. "If that recording is real, someone's playing God." The tension reached a boiling point as every new second of that clip was replayed, slowed down, analyzed, and dissected like evidence in a crime case. Inside the hospital, the mood turned heavy. Everyone was on edge. Tiny, already crushed by her son's condition, was unraveling. She looked at T.I., her face streaked with tears, her voice shaking with fury. "I told you, T.I., this is your fault," she cried out, her pain spilling over. "This isn't just a health scare. Someone's trying to get rid of King. This is what happens when you live the life we do." Her words cut through the room like a knife. For Tiny, this wasn't paranoia. It was conviction. And as that audio clip spread across the world, it felt less like a rumor and more like the chilling truth everyone was too afraid to say out loud. "This is the price we're paying," Tiny shouted, her voice trembling with fury and heartbreak. I tried to stay calm, tried to speak gently, but deep down he was just as terrified. The world was spinning out of control, and every new rumor online only made things worse. What had started as a health crisis was now turning into a full-blown nightmare. It felt like a ticking time bomb, one that could explode at any second. He looked at her, his eyes heavy with guilt and fear. "I didn't bring this onto our family, Tiny," he said, his voice raw and breaking. "But I swear if anyone is trying to hurt my son, I'll make them regret it." The words came out like a vow, sharp, cold, and deadly serious, but even as he said them, the reality hit him hard. Something was deeply wrong inside that hospital. By afternoon, the atmosphere inside had become unbearable. Doctors rushed in and out of the ICU, their faces pale with exhaustion. Nurses whispered nervously in the hallways, afraid to speak too loud. The staff was stretched thin, barely sleeping, working nonstop to keep King alive. But something about their tension didn't feel normal. It wasn't just stress, it was fear. People started asking the question no one wanted to say out loud. Was someone inside that ICU sabotaging King's recovery? The whispers spread fast. Some claimed to have seen strange activity near the machines. Others said they were told to stay quiet or risk losing their jobs. The once trusted hospital now felt like a crime scene, and the air was thick with suspicion. Then came the next horrifying twist. Another leak. An anonymous insider sent information straight to the press, and this time it confirmed the worst fears imaginable. King's ventilator, the very machine keeping him alive, had been tampered with. For several seconds, his breathing had completely stopped. The report stated it wasn't a malfunction, it was deliberate. Someone had interfered with the system that was supposed to save him. The revelation hit like a thunderclap. Social media exploded again, fans demanding justice while the hospital scrambled to contain the chaos. The idea that someone inside those walls had intentionally cut off King's oxygen was beyond belief. This wasn't just a tragedy anymore, it was beginning to look like an inside job, a deliberate act meant to push King right to the edge. It looked straight up intentional. The staff, already burning out from the crisis, now had to swallow the idea that someone had deliberately messed with King's care, and that thought hit the family and the whole world like a punch. I was furious and pacing like a man on a mission. He'd been walking those hospital floors for hours trying to keep it together for Tiny and King, but this latest twist broke him down. His son was on the ropes, and there might be people even inside that hospital working against him. He couldn't wrap his head around it and kept replaying the worst case scenes in his mind. Someone had clearly tried to finish what they started, and T.I. wasn't having it. "I swear if they've done this to my son, I will make them pay for it," he said through gritted teeth, loud enough for anyone to hear. The vow was raw and deadly serious. He wouldn't rest until he found who pulled the strings. As night dragged on, the hospital felt like a war zone of feelings. Trust gone, nerves frayed, and every tiny sound setting off panic. T.I. and Tiny were both at the edge, stuck between clinging to hope that King might pull through and the dread that something far darker was moving in the shadows. It was a horrible place to be, and neither of them knew who or what to fight against anymore. Ty had never felt this helpless before, and that helplessness cut deep. His son's life was slipping, and the worst part was the mystery. Was it a corrupt insider, a planned hit, or something even uglier hiding behind hospital doors? Tiny, meanwhile, was starting to fray at the seams, and the whole scene felt like a slow, painful unraveling of everything they knew and trusted. Tiny's anger, which had been bubbling for days, finally erupted like a storm that couldn't be contained. Every new detail, every leak, every strange clue added fuel to the fire burning inside her. The fear that had once paralyzed her was gone, replaced by raw fury and heartbreak. One night she turned to T.I., eyes red and full of rage. "You knew this would happen, didn't you?" She spat, her voice shaking. "You've always dragged us into this world, and now our son is paying the price. King is a victim of your choices." Her words hit like a slap. I stood there frozen, his chest tightening as he tried to find the right words. "Tiny, please," he said softly, desperate to calm her down. "I didn't..." But she wasn't hearing it. She was past reasoning, past patience, past everything. In her mind, the man she'd loved for years, the father of her child, had become the source of her pain. The same fame, the same spotlight that once felt glamorous now looked like a curse. Ty tried to hold himself together, but the blame was breaking him down piece by piece. The guilt, the helplessness, the sight of his son barely holding on, it was crushing him. The tension between them was unbearable, and every glance felt like another wound. Meanwhile, the hospital was in total chaos. Doctors raced through the halls, shouting orders, their faces etched with exhaustion. The ICU had turned into a war zone of beeping machines, flashing alarms, and silent prayers. Nurses moved quickly, trading shifts, watching monitors, checking and rechecking every wire connected to King. But even through the chaos, something else lingered in the air. An unspoken fear that went far beyond medicine. Whispers started spreading again, this time among the hospital staff themselves. Some said they'd seen irregularities in King's chart that couldn't be explained. Others claimed someone had been accessing restricted areas of the ICU without clearance. Could it be that someone inside was still tampering with his treatment, or was this just a nightmare made worse by panic and exhaustion? No one had answers, only questions that grew louder with every hour King's condition worsened. The words sabotage and inside job hung in the air like poison. Nurses spoke in hushed tones, afraid to even look at each other. The once trusted hospital had turned into a house of suspicion, and no one knew who to trust anymore. "Do you think someone in the hospital is responsible?" One nurse whispered to another, her eyes darting nervously toward the ICU doors. The fear in her voice said it all. Nobody felt safe anymore. Even the doctors who had been working non-stop to save King were now second-guessing everything. The hospital, once a place of healing, had turned into a zone of suspicion and dread. Every hallway felt colder. Every shadow looked darker, and trust had completely vanished. The medical staff, once proud and confident, were now trembling under the weight of uncertainty. They weren't just fighting for King's life, they were fighting to figure out if someone among them was secretly working to end it. The idea that one of their own could be sabotaging the treatment was horrifying, and yet no one could shake the feeling that something sinister was happening right under their noses. Then, bam! The most chilling leak yet hit the internet, and this one shattered everything. A whistleblower from inside the hospital had secretly recorded a conversation between two high-ranking officials, and what they said was beyond terrifying. "If King survives, everything changes," one of the voices said coldly. "He can't be allowed to speak. He knows too much." The tone was flat, emotionless, and it sent chills down everyone's spine. Within minutes, the audio was everywhere, replayed, shared, analyzed. The whole world heard it. The implications were horrifying. Were these people admitting that King had been targeted? That this was a planned attack, a silencing mission ordered by powerful figures hiding in the background? Social media went into meltdown mode. Fans, celebrities, even politicians began demanding an investigation. Justice for King started trending worldwide as millions demanded answers. Every news outlet ran the story, every podcast dissected the audio, and conspiracy theories spread like wildfire. Inside that hospital, T.I. and Tiny could feel the walls closing in. The truth was no longer just terrifying, it was dangerous. They weren't just dealing with a medical emergency anymore. They were facing a shadowy force that wanted their son gone. T.I. stood at the edge of King's bed, fists clenched, eyes full of fire. His son, the one person he'd sworn to protect above everything, was now at the mercy of people he couldn't even see. And as the world watched in shock, one thing became clear. This wasn't over. Not even close. Subscribe to Juicy Reel for more shocking twists and stories that the world can't stop talking about.